The small shuttle shivered as it entered the thin atmosphere of the frontier planet. Outside the window, Lyra pressed her hands against the glass, watching the sprawling landscape unfold beneath her. Jagged red cliffs met wide plains that seemed to stretch endlessly, dotted with small domes and scattered buildings. The air shimmered with the heat of a distant sun, and the scent of strange minerals hung in the thin cabin air. Lyra's heart thumped with a mix of fear and excitement. This was nothing like the crowded city she had grown up in. No high-rise towers, no automated streets, just wide-open space and the promise of the unknown. At 18, she had left everything familiar behind. Her parents had passed when she was young, and she had been raised in a bustling city filled with technology and endless noise. Learning about life in a frontier colony had always seemed like a distant story, something she read about in books, imagining herself as a character in those adventurous tales. But now, sitting in the shuttle that would take her to the home of Ronan, a widowed rancher who had been a friend of her father, she realized this was no story, this was her life. When the shuttle landed, a cloud of dust rose from the dry ground, coating the exterior in a thin layer of red grit. Lyra stepped off, her boots crunching against the uneven soil. A tall man with sun-weathered skin and kind but tired eyes approached. His presence was calm, steady, and immediately reassuring. "You must be Lyra," he said, his voice low but warm. "I'm Ronan. Welcome to the ranch." Lyra swallowed, her throat dry. "Thank you, sir," she said, though the formal address felt awkward. Ronan chuckled softly, shaking his head. "No need for formalities here. You'll learn to call this home soon enough." He gestured toward a cluster of structures in the distance. "The children are just inside. I hope you're ready for a different kind of life than what you're used to." Lyra glanced toward the buildings. 3 children emerged, each different from the other. The eldest, a boy of 12 with a shock of dark hair, looked skeptical. A girl of 10 hid behind him, her eyes wide with curiosity. The youngest, a boy no older than 6, ran forward with unrestrained energy, stopping only to peek at her with a shy smile. Lyra felt a flutter of nerves. She had never interacted with children this much, especially not in a setting so wild and unfamiliar. "Hello," she said, forcing a smile. "I'm Lyra." The eldest boy studied her. "Are you really going to stay here? You don't look like you can handle the ranch," he said bluntly. Lyra's cheeks burned. I'll try my best," she said, unsure if words could convince him. Ronan gave a quiet laugh. "Don't worry, they'll come around. It takes time to adjust out here. You'll see. Life on the frontier isn't easy, but it's rewarding. You'll learn faster than you think." The ranch was a mix of old technology and natural resources. Domed structures provided shelter from storms and maintained the right climate for crops. Solar panels glinted in the sunlight, and small wind turbines dotted the plains. Beyond the domes were grazing areas for alien livestock, creatures that looked like a cross between sheep and lizards. Lyra's eyes widened. She had read about these creatures, but seeing them in person was unlike anything she imagined. Inside the main dome, the children began exploring, circling around Lyra with quiet curiosity. "Do you know how to cook?" the eldest boy asked. I know the basics," Lyra admitted. "You'll need more than basics here," Ronan said. "Food doesn't come from a store. We grow it, harvest it, and cook it ourselves. And sometimes it takes patience and creativity." Lyra nodded, determined to rise to the challenge. She had always been a quick learner, excelling in her studies back in the city. She hoped her adaptability would serve her well on this planet. After a simple meal, Ronan took Lyra outside to show her the ranch. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the plains. The alien sky was painted with hues of pink and orange, and the distant mountains seemed almost magical in the soft light. Lyra felt a sense of awe, a feeling she hadn't experienced in the city with its artificial skylines and neon lights. "This land," Ronan began, gesturing widely, "is beautiful, But it's also unforgiving. Weather changes fast, crops can fail, and livestock needs constant care. But if you learn to understand it, to work with it instead of against it, it gives back more than you could imagine. Lyra listened intently, absorbing every word. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This life was so different from anything she knew, and yet, she felt drawn to it. As they walked, a sudden gust of wind kicked up red dust, swirling around them. Lyra flinched and instinctively shielded her face. Ronan laughed, a low and comforting sound. "Don't worry about the dust," he said. "You'll get used to it. And trust me, you'll find ways to make even this a friend, not an enemy." They approached a small plot of alien crops, delicate plants with glowing veins that pulsed faintly in the dim light. "These are the most important crops we grow," Ronan explained. "They need constant attention, and if you neglect them, they won't survive. Tomorrow, I'll show you how to tend them. It's more than just watering. It's understanding the rhythm of the land." Lyra nodded, feeling a spark of determination. She could do this. She had to. The first night in the dome was quiet. The children slept in their rooms, and Lyra was left with a small cot in a corner of the main living area. She stared out the dome at the star-filled sky, feeling the vast emptiness of the frontier around her. Fear lingered at the edges of her mind, but so did excitement. This was a chance to prove herself, to grow, and to be part of something bigger than herself. In the quiet, Lyra thought about the stories her father used to tell her. He always spoke of courage, curiosity, and the human ability to adapt. She could feel that same spirit around her here. The frontier was harsh, but it was full of possibility, and she intended to rise to it. As she drifted off to sleep, Lyra made a silent promise to herself. She would not fail. She would learn, adapt, and thrive. The ranch, the children, and the frontier itself would all become part of her story. And maybe, just maybe, she would surprise even herself with what she was capable of. Outside, the wind whispered across the plains, carrying with it the scent of dust and the faint glow of alien life. The frontier was alive, and so was the potential within Lyra. Tomorrow would be the first real test of her courage, skill, and determination, and she would face it head-on. The sun rose slowly over the frontier ranch, spilling light across the red plains and alien crops. Lyra awoke with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Today was the first day she would truly work on the ranch, learning to handle tasks that were completely unfamiliar to her. She rubbed her eyes, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep, and peeked out of the dome at the sprawling landscape. The wind carried the faint scent of soil, dust, and something slightly sweet that came from the alien plants. Ronan appeared at the entrance, carrying a basket filled with small tools. "Morning, Lyra," he called. "Ready to start?" Lyra nodded, trying to hide her anxiety. "I'm ready," she said. The children were already up and moving. The eldest boy, Kale, rolled his eyes, but seemed curious. "I hope you can handle this," he muttered. Lyra smiled. "I will. Just show me what to do." Ronan led her to the first area of the ranch, the alien crop fields. The plants were strange to look at, with glowing veins that pulsed softly, almost as if they had a heartbeat. Lyra marveled at them, careful not to touch anything yet. "These are our most important crops," Ronan explained. "They need careful attention, proper watering, and the right nutrients. They are sensitive to changes in the environment, and if we neglect them, we could lose a harvest." Lyra listened carefully. She had studied science in school, but applying it in a place like this was different. The soil was not like Earth soil, and the water had unique minerals. She would have to pay attention, learn quickly, and adapt her knowledge. "First, let's check the soil," Ronan said. "Feel it, smell it, and notice how it reacts. These plants tell you what they need if you know how to listen." Said. Lyra knelt down, brushing her fingers over the soil. It was dry in some areas, and slightly damp in others. The texture was unlike anything she had touched before. She leaned closer, inhaling the scent, and noticed a faint sweet aroma coming from the base of the plants. She frowned, realizing she needed to be careful not to disturb the delicate roots. Kale watched her quietly. "Not bad," he said finally. "You're actually listening." Lyra felt a small rush of pride. Even a little recognition from Kale mattered. Ronan handed her a small watering device. "The water here is infused with nutrients that help the plants adapt to the planet. Use it gently. Too much or too little can harm them." Lyra nodded, carefully applying water to each plant. She noticed that some plants seemed to lean toward her as she moved, almost as if sensing her presence. It was strange, almost magical, but she reminded herself to stay focused. By midday, Lyra's arms ached, and dust clung to her clothes. The sun beat down relentlessly, and sweat ran down her back. The children helped her as best they could, showing her the patterns of the fields and how to check for signs of stress in the plants. Lyra realized she was learning faster than she expected. "See?" Ronan said, smiling. "You're catching on. That's the human advantage. Adaptability. You think, learn, and improve. That's what keeps us alive in places like this." Lyra felt a surge of determination. She had always been told she was smart. But this was different. This was not about grades or tests, it was about survival and growth. As they moved to the next task, tending to the alien livestock, Lyra noticed a group of creatures grazing near a rocky outcrop. They were about the size of a dog but had long, patterned tails and soft, reflective scales. They watched her carefully, tilting their heads as she approached. "Be gentle," Ronan advised. "These creatures respond to calmness and confidence. If you panic, they panic." Lyra held out her hands, stepping slowly forward. One of the younger creatures approached her, sniffing cautiously. Lyra remained still, letting it examine her. After a few tense moments, the creature nuzzled her hand lightly. Lyra laughed softly, a mixture of relief and delight. The children giggled, watching her. Even Kale's skeptical expression softened. "You're better with them than I am," he admitted. "Patience and attention," Lyra said, smiling. "You have to respect them and understand what they need." Ronan nodded approvingly. "Exactly. That's the first lesson in working with life on this planet. Everything here communicates in its own way. You just have to listen." By afternoon, Lyra had learned to feed the livestock, check their health, and even guide them back to their enclosure without frightening them. She was tired, but a sense of accomplishment filled her. She realized that, despite the harshness of the frontier, there was a rhythm to life here. A pattern that rewarded observation, thought, and care. Then, as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, a sudden gust of wind swept across the plains. Dust and sand whipped around, and the sky darkened with a reddish haze. Lyra froze for a moment, instinctively moving to shield the young livestock. "Dust storm," Ronan called out calmly. "They're sudden here. We need to protect the crops and the animals." Lyra's heart raced. She had never experienced a real storm before, let alone one on an alien planet. The wind picked up, rattling the domes and swirling around them like a living thing. Ronan quickly gave instructions. "Lyra, help secure the smaller animals. Kale, bring the older livestock closer. Everyone else, check the domes. We have to make sure nothing is damaged." Lyra moved with urgency, guiding the frightened creatures toward their enclosures. Her hands shook, but she focused, remembering everything Ronan had taught her that day. Slowly, methodically, she helped calm the animals and secure the area. By the time the storm passed, the ranch was intact, and the animals were safe. Dust clung to everyone's clothes, and Lyra was exhausted. But a quiet sense of triumph filled her. "You did well," Ronan said, clapping her on the shoulder. "You stayed calm, followed instructions, and adapted. That's the difference between failure and survival on the frontier." Lyra smiled, feeling pride swell in her chest. She had faced her first real challenge and survived. More than that, she had learned something about herself, her courage, her patience, and her ability to think quickly under pressure. The children gathered around her, their earlier skepticism replaced by admiration. "You really saved the animals," the youngest boy said. "You're not just some city girl after all." Kale nodded slowly. "Yeah, maybe you belong here." For the first time, Lyra felt that she truly did. She wasn't just an outsider anymore, she was part of this ranch, part of this frontier. The land, the animals, and the children had accepted her, and she had earned a small place in their world. That night, as she lay in her cot, Lyra thought about the day. She had faced fear, learned new skills, and discovered the power of patience and observation. The frontier was harsh, yes, but it also offered freedom and growth in ways the city never could. She looked out at the alien sky, dotted with stars, and made another promise to herself. Tomorrow, she would do more than just survive. She would learn more, help more, and continue to prove that she could rise to any challenge. And somewhere deep inside, Lyra felt a thrill at the thought of all the unknown adventures still waiting for her on this frontier planet. The morning sun rose slowly over the frontier ranch, casting a golden glow over the red plains. Lyra stretched and stepped outside her dome, inhaling the fresh, dry air. The wind was calmer than the day before, and the alien crops swayed gently under the light. Today felt different. She wasn't just a new helper anymore. She had survived her first real challenge, earned Ronan's praise, and, to some extent, the respect of the children. But earning their trust completely would take more than courage. It would take patience, understanding, and creativity. Ronan appeared with a broad smile. "Morning, Lyra. Ready for another day?" "Always," Lyra said, smiling back. The children had already begun their morning routines. Kale, the eldest, was checking the livestock enclosures while the youngest ran around picking up small tools. The middle child, Lyra, carefully inspected the alien crops, making sure none of them were damaged from the storm the day before. Lyra approached them, feeling both nervous and excited. She wanted to show that she wasn't just capable but also caring. "Good morning," she said. "Do you want to work together today?" The youngest boy ran toward her, grabbing her hand. "Yes. Show me what to do." Kale raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Lyra glanced at Lyra, a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Lyra knew that to truly gain the children's trust, she had to be more than competent. She had to be patient and kind. Ronan led them to a part of the ranch that needed special attention, the water management system. The alien crops relied on a combination of moisture from the soil and carefully filtered water infused with minerals. Any mistake could damage the plants. Lyra knelt beside the system, studying the pipes and valves. "This system is old," Ronan explained. "We've kept it running for years, but it needs constant care. Lyra, can you help me check it today?" "I can try," Lyra said, examining the network of pipes. Her mind, trained in problem-solving from her city life, immediately began analyzing how the system worked. While Lyra focused on the pipes, the children joined in. Kale hesitated at first, then started handing her tools. Lyra watched her every move, asking questions. Lyra explained her actions patiently, showing them how to check the valves, ensure the water pressure was correct, and even detect small leaks. "You explain things well," Lyra said quietly. "Thank you," Lyra replied. "I want to make sure you understand too. It's important to learn how everything works here." As the morning passed, Lyra noticed something remarkable. The children began to follow her lead without needing to be told. They were learning quickly, observing not just her words, but her calmness, patience, and attention to detail. Lyra felt a warm sense of pride. She wasn't just surviving on the frontier, she was helping others grow with her. After a simple lunch, Ronan suggested a different activity, mapping the ranch and the surrounding plains. He handed Lyra a small tablet and some measurement tools. "We need to understand the land if we want to protect it and make it thrive. I want you to help create a map that shows all the crops, water sources, and livestock areas." Lyra's eyes lit up. Mapping was something she loved. Back in the city, she had spent hours drawing and planning, imagining new ways to solve problems. Here, she could apply her skills in a real, meaningful way. The children joined her, eager to contribute. Cale measured distances between the enclosures, Lyra took notes on the crop fields, and the youngest boy sketched small pictures of the animals. Together, they moved across the plains, learning about landmarks, water sources, and the patterns of wind and weather. "This is fun," the youngest boy exclaimed. "We're explorers," Lyra laughed. "Exactly. And explorers need to understand their land. Knowing where everything is helps us make better choices and keep the ranch safe." By afternoon, their map was taking shape. A detailed record of the ranch and its surroundings, filled with notes, measurements, and sketches. Ronan examined it carefully. "This is excellent work," he said. "You've all done more than I expected. This map will help us plan the future of the ranch, and it's all because you worked together." Lyra felt a glow of satisfaction. For the first time, she realized that the children no longer saw her as an outsider. They saw her as a leader, a teacher, and a partner. Trust was being built, not through words alone, but through action, patience, and care. As the day went on, the ranch faced another small test. One of the younger livestock creatures became restless, wandering toward the edge of the plains. Lyra noticed it immediately and acted without hesitation. She moved slowly, speaking softly, guiding the animal back toward safety. The children followed her example, and together they managed to bring it back without panic or harm. "You handled that perfectly," Ronan said afterward. "You didn't just react, you thought, observed, and acted calmly. That's exactly what this place requires." Lyra felt her confidence growing. The challenges of the frontier were no longer frightening, they were opportunities to learn, adapt, and grow stronger. She realized that the human spirit thrived not because life was easy, but because humans had the ability to face challenges, work together, and find solutions. As evening approached, Lyra and the children gathered near the domes to watch the sunset. The alien sky glowed with vibrant colors, shades of pink, orange, and deep purple, blending together. The plains stretched endlessly, alive with the sounds of wildlife and the rustle of the wind. "You did a great job today," Cale said quietly. I didn't think you'd really fit in. But you do." Lyra smiled warmly. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without you all. We're a team." The youngest boy hugged her arm. "I like that. We're a team." Ronan watched them with a quiet pride. He knew that Lyra's presence was already changing the ranch for the better. Her courage, intelligence, and care were bringing new life to the frontier home. And the children were responding, growing more confident and curious with each passing day. That night, as Lyra lay in her cot, she thought about everything she had learned. The land was harsh and unpredictable, but it was also full of beauty and potential. The children were no longer strangers, they were companions, students, and partners. And Ronan, he trusted her completely, giving her responsibilities that would shape the ranch's future. For the first time, Lyra felt a deep sense of belonging. She wasn't just surviving. She was making a difference. The ranch, the children, and the land were becoming part of her story. And she was becoming part of theirs. She looked out at the night sky, filled with countless stars that seemed brighter and closer than any she had ever seen in the city. The frontier was full of unknowns, but it was also full of opportunity. Lyra knew that challenges would continue to come, but she felt ready to face them. Somewhere deep inside, she felt the quiet excitement of what lay ahead. There would be more storms, more problems to solve, and more lessons to learn. But with patience, intelligence, and teamwork, she knew humans could adapt to anything, even the most unforgiving frontier. And tomorrow, she would continue building trust, strengthening the ranch, and discovering the true extent of her own abilities. The frontier was testing her, yes, but it was also teaching her the most important lesson of all. Human beings are capable of remarkable things when they believe in themselves and work together. The sun hung high in the alien sky, casting bright light across the frontier ranch. Lyra stood near the crop fields, wiping sweat from her brow. Days of learning, adapting, and working alongside Ronan and the children had made her stronger and more confident. She understood the land, the livestock, and the rhythm of the ranch. Yet, as she looked over the plains, a feeling of unease stirred in her chest. The frontier was unpredictable, and she had learned that even a small mistake could have big consequences. Ronan approached with a serious expression. "Lyra, we have a situation," he said, pointing toward the distant hills. "The water from the northern reservoir isn't reaching the main irrigation channels. If it doesn't get fixed soon, the crops could suffer." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. Water was life for the ranch, and losing it would threaten everything they had worked for. "I'll help," she said immediately. Determination, replacing any hint of fear. Together, they walked toward the reservoir, the children following closely. Lyra carried her tablet, taking notes and analyzing the system as they went. The northern reservoir was a small dome connected to the main irrigation system through a network of pipes and filters. Lyra's eyes scanned the pipes carefully. Something was blocking the flow, but she couldn't see exactly what. "Here's the tricky part," Ronan explained. "The blockage could be inside the pipes or at the filtration system. Either way, we'll have to work carefully. One wrong move, and we could damage the system." Lyra nodded. Her mind raced with possible solutions. She had learned to combine her knowledge from the city with the unique lessons of the frontier. This was the moment to apply everything she had learned. She started by examining the filtration system. Using her tablet, she checked flow levels, pressure readings, and filter status. After a few tense minutes, she noticed a problem. A small filter had become clogged with mineral deposits from the alien water. It was subtle, but enough to slow the flow. "This is it," Lyra said, pointing to the filter. "It's clogged. We need to remove it carefully and clean it. If we do it right, the water will flow again." Ronan nodded. "Good eye. But it's tricky. You have to handle it gently, or the system could fail." Lyra took a deep breath, steadying herself. She carefully unscrewed the filter, using tools she had learned to handle over the past weeks. Dust and tiny mineral particles swirled in the air, but she stayed focused. Slowly, methodically, she cleaned the filter, ensuring no debris remained. The children watched in awe. Even Kael, who often appeared skeptical, seemed impressed by her skill. "You really know what you're doing," he said quietly. "Just careful observation and patience," Lyra replied. "And a little practice." Once the filter was cleaned, Lyra reinstalled it and checked the flow. The water slowly began moving through the pipes again. She and Ronan followed the channels, watching as the irrigation system carried life back to the crops. Lyra's heart lifted with relief and pride. "You did it," Ronan said, clapping her on the shoulder. "You saved the crops. And the ranch. That's the human advantage. Thinking. Observing. Adapting." Lyra smiled, feeling a warm sense of accomplishment. But she knew the frontier would not stop testing her. She glanced at the children, who were beaming with admiration. Today had shown them that humans could overcome challenges with intelligence, patience, and teamwork. The day was far from over. As they returned to the main dome, a sudden gust of wind swept across the plains, carrying the faint sound of distant machinery. Lyra paused, noticing a small group of scouts from a nearby settlement on the horizon. They were surveying the land, their movements cautious but deliberate. "They might be looking to claim territory," Ronan whispered. "The land around us is unclaimed in some areas. Rival settlements sometimes try to expand by taking advantage of newcomers." Lyra's mind raced. Conflict was not her preference. But the frontier required strategy, creativity, and foresight. She had an idea, one that did not involve confrontation. "We don't have to fight them," she said. "We can show them the strength of our ranch. If they see how well we manage this land, they might respect us and even collaborate." Ronan nodded slowly. "You're right. But we'll have to act fast. Lyra gathered the children and explained her plan. Together, they worked on improvements to the ranch, reinforcing the domes, tidying the fields, and showcasing the irrigation system. Lyra also used her tablet to create a visual map and display of the ranch's resources, showing water systems, crops, livestock, and energy sources. It was a way to demonstrate that the ranch was not only thriving but also well-managed and intelligent. By evening, the scouts had approached closer, curious about the activities at the ranch. Lyra and the children greeted them calmly, showing them the crops, livestock, and water systems. The scouts observed carefully, their expressions shifting from suspicion to admiration. "This is impressive," one of the scouts said. "You've done a lot here. We didn't expect this level of organization." Lyra smiled. "We take care of our land. It's not just work, it's respect for the frontier. Humans have a way of adapting, learning, and thriving, even in places that seem impossible." The scouts nodded thoughtfully. "We can see that now. Perhaps we can find a way to work together instead of against each other." Ronan's eyes shone with pride. Lyra's plan had worked perfectly. She had turned a potential threat into an opportunity for collaboration. The ranch had proven itself not through force, but through innovation, intelligence, and teamwork. As the scouts left, Lyra and the children celebrated quietly. Kale finally smiled openly at her. "I have to admit, I didn't think you could handle all this. But you did." The youngest boy hugged her again. "You're amazing. You saved the crops and made the ranch look super cool," Lyra laughed. "Thank you. But we all did it together. That's what makes the difference, teamwork." 3. Ara. That night, Lyra sat outside the dome, looking at the stars. The ranch was quiet, the wind gentle, and the plains peaceful. Yet she knew challenges would continue to come. The frontier tested humans constantly, but it also taught them about resilience, ingenuity, and courage. For the first time, Lyra felt the full weight of responsibility. She was not just a helper anymore. She was a leader, a problem solver, and a source of inspiration for the children and the ranch. The trust they had in her was now fully mutual. She trusted the land, the animals, and the people around her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more storms, maintenance, and perhaps even new settlers seeking land. But Lyra no longer feared them. She had discovered something powerful. Humans could face any challenge with intelligence, care, and creativity. The frontier was harsh, but it was also a place where humans could shine. As she drifted to sleep, Lyra thought about the day's lessons. Observation, patience, teamwork, and creative thinking had turned a potential disaster into a triumph. She had proven that humans, when united and clever, could overcome even the most daunting problems. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a quiet excitement for the future. The frontier was vast, full of unknowns and opportunities. With courage, adaptability, and trust in herself and her companions, Lyra knew that the ranch and the humans who lived on it would continue to thrive. The wind whispered across the plains, carrying the faint scent of the alien crops and the soft sounds of livestock settling in for the night. Lyra smiled, knowing that she had found her place in this world. The frontier was no longer just a challenge, it was her home, and she was ready for whatever it would teach her next. The morning sun rose over the frontier ranch, painting the plains in warm shades of gold and red. Lyra stood at the edge of the crop fields, surveying the land she had grown to love. The ranch was thriving, the crops were strong, the livestock healthy, and the domes glinted in the sunlight. But Lyra knew that life on the frontier never stayed easy for long. Challenges came unexpectedly, and today, a new test awaited her. Ronan approached with a serious expression. "Lyra, there's a problem with the southern fields. The wind from last night caused damage to some of the crops, and we need to act quickly to prevent more losses." Lyra nodded, determination tightening in her chest. She had faced dust storms, equipment failures, and the skepticism of the children, but this was her first true test of leading the ranch through a crisis alone. "Let's start with the crops," she said, gathering the children. "We'll work together, and we'll fix this." The children followed her eagerly. Cale carried tools. Lyra checked the damaged plants, and the youngest boy helped wherever he could. Lyra had taught them well, and now they trusted her completely. Together, they moved through the fields, assessing the damage. Some plants had broken stems, while others were partially buried in loose soil, blown by the wind. "This is bad, but not impossible," Lyra said, kneeling to examine a broken plant. "We can support the stems with small rods and guide the crops back to the sunlight. If we act quickly, they'll recover." Cale raised an eyebrow. "You really think that will work?" "Yes," Lyra replied confidently. "Humans are creative. We face challenges and find solutions. We'll save these crops together." They spent the morning repairing the plants. Lyra showed the children how to prop up broken stems, clear away loose soil, and even adjust the water channels to compensate for areas that had been buried. It was hard work, and sweat dripped from their brows, but they worked efficiently, side by side. By midday, the majority of the damaged crops were stabilized. The children looked exhausted, but proud. Lyra felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was the first time she truly felt like she belonged on the ranch, like she was part of something greater than herself. Ronan approached, watching them work. "You've done a remarkable job," he said. "Not just fixing the crops, but showing leadership and care. You've turned a problem into a learning experience for everyone." Lyra smiled, feeling a warm pride in her chest. But the day was far from over. As they moved toward the northern edge of the ranch, she noticed a faint shimmer on the horizon, a dust cloud rising from the plains beyond their land. "Another storm," Ronan said quietly. "It's moving fast. We need to protect the livestock and reinforce the domes." Lyra's mind raced. She had faced storms before, but this one threatened both crops and animals at the same time. She realized that quick thinking, teamwork, and preparation would be essential. "Children, gather all the animals near the central dome," she instructed. "I'll reinforce the structures and secure the crops. Stay calm and follow instructions." The children nodded, moving quickly but carefully. Lyra ran between the fields and the domes, checking every support rod, tightening every connection, and using the knowledge she had gained over the past weeks to prepare for the storm. As the wind arrived, it howled across the plains, shaking the domes and whipping dust through the air. Lyra's hair clung to her face, and the air stung her eyes. But she did not falter. She thought of her city skills, her observations of the land, and the lessons Ronan had taught her. Each action was deliberate, careful, and precise. The storm lasted for hours, testing their endurance and courage. The children stayed close to the central dome, helping wherever they could, following Lyra's calm guidance. Slowly, the damage was minimized, the domes held firm, the livestock remained safe, and the crops, though battered, survived. When the storm finally passed, the plains were quiet again. Dust settled on the fields, and the sun shone weakly through the haze. Lyra collapsed onto the ground, exhausted, but exhilarated. The children gathered around her, hugging her and laughing with relief. "You did it, Lyra," the youngest boy exclaimed. "You saved everything." Cale nodded, his earlier skepticism gone completely. "You weren't just brave, you were smart and strong. I'm proud of you." Lyra smiled, her chest swelling with emotion. She had faced her first real test of leadership. And not only had she succeeded, but she had also earned the full trust and admiration of the children. Ronan came over, his eyes shining with pride. "You've shown what humans are capable of," he said. "We face challenges, and we overcome them not by luck, but by thinking, learning, and working together. You've brought that spirit to this ranch, and it will guide us in the future." For a moment, Lyra allowed herself to feel the full weight of her accomplishments. She had arrived on this frontier planet as a young, unprepared city girl. Now, she was a trusted leader, a problem solver, and a source of inspiration. The ranch, the children, and the land had become part of her story, and she had become part of theirs. The day ended with everyone gathered near the domes, watching the sunset. The alien sky glowed in shades of orange and purple, reflecting the dust from the storm. Lyra looked around at the smiling faces of the children and Ronan. She felt a sense of peace and belonging she had never known before. "You've done something amazing here," Kale said softly. "I didn't think humans could do all this out here. But now, I see it clearly. We can adapt, survive, and even thrive." "Yes," Lyra said, her voice calm but filled with conviction. "That's the human spirit. We face challenges, and we don't give up. We work together, we learn, and we grow stronger." Ronan smiled. "You've taught the children, and me, a valuable lesson too. It's not just about surviving, it's about using our minds, hearts, and teamwork to create something better." That night, as Lyra lay in her cot, she reflected on the journey so far. The frontier had tested her in ways she had never imagined. Dust storms, equipment failures, and the challenges of managing the ranch had all pushed her to her limits. Yet, she had discovered something essential. Humans were capable of remarkable achievements when they worked together and believed in themselves. She looked out at the stars, brighter and more vibrant than any she had seen in the city. The plains stretched endlessly, filled with possibilities and unknown adventures. The ranch was not just surviving, it was thriving, a testament to human ingenuity, courage, and resilience. Lyra knew that life on the frontier would continue to present challenges. New storms, unexpected problems, and even rival settlers might appear. But she no longer feared them. She had learned to trust herself, the land, and the people around her. And she had learned that, together, humans could overcome anything. The children had learned this lesson too. Kale had gained confidence, Lyra curiosity, and the youngest boy courage. They had seen firsthand what humans could achieve when they stayed calm, worked together, and used their intelligence and creativity. And Lyra? She had transformed from a young, unsure city girl into a capable, respected, and admired leader. The ranch, the children, and Ronan had become her family, her community, and her home. As she drifted to sleep, the wind whispered softly across the plains. The alien crops shimmered in the moonlight, the livestock settled quietly, and the domes stood firm against the vastness of the frontier. Lyra felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Tomorrow would bring new tasks, new lessons, and new opportunities. But for now, she could rest, knowing that she had faced the greatest challenges yet and had triumphed not through luck, but through courage, intelligence, and the power of the human spirit. The frontier was wide, unpredictable, and sometimes harsh. But it was also a place where humans could shine, where determination and teamwork could turn adversity into success. Lyra had proven that humans could adapt, innovate, and thrive, even in the most difficult conditions. And as she closed her eyes, a quiet smile formed on her face. The ranch was safe, the children were happy, and the frontier, once so intimidating, felt like home. She had arrived as an unprepared young girl, but she would continue on this journey as a symbol of what humans could achieve. A living testament to the strength, resilience, and brilliance of humanity. The stars above seemed to twinkle in agreement. The frontier had been conquered not by force, but by human ingenuity, teamwork, and heart. And that was a triumph worth celebrating.